The sky above the cerulean expanse was a bruised violet, bruised by the dying light of twin suns setting beyond the horizon. Captain Elias Thorne pressed a gloved hand against the jagged hull of his wrecked scout vessel, its metallic frame groaning under the planet's relentless gravity. The once sleek Aegis-class scout ship was now a twisted skeleton of scorched metal, smoke curling up into the cold air and blending with the darkening twilight. He listened to its tortured sighs, serrated breaths escaping through torn hull plating, and the sound melded with his own ragged breathing. Elias had been a decorated pilot in the interstellar frontier fleet, renowned for his daring maneuvers and unwavering calm in the face of disaster. Yet nothing in his years, neither the firefights on Ida Station nor the asteroid field ambushes during the outer sector skirmishes, had prepared him for this solitude. His distress beacon had been activated shortly after the crash, its faint ping echoing into the void. Backup would come eventually, they always did. But waiting meant vulnerability, and on Hafran, vulnerability could be fatal. He checked his wrist console, communications offline, life support functioning at 27 hours. He was alone, rising from a crouch. He scanned the horizon where jagged spires of crystalline formations, alien geodes that looked like fractured diamonds, jutted from the ground. Their surfaces reflected the dying solar rays, casting fractured patterns of violet and blue onto the barren terrain. Hafran's landscape, once teeming with hydroponic cities under protective domes, was now a desolate expanse. The war of the outer colonies had claimed this world a decade ago. No one returned here, not even scavengers, unless they sought forbidden ruins or illegal salvage runs. Elias wiped sweat from his brow, though the chill air caused him to shiver more than sweat. His visor's HUD flickered slightly. Radiation levels were low, but the risk of sudden cold fronts, radiation storms, loomed like an unseen predator. He considered finding shelter immediately. A cave system lay a kilometer north, its entrance marked by obsidian shadows. But caves on Hafran were often contaminated, filled with geochemical toxins or worse, renegade automatons left behind from the war. The abandoned settlement at the edge of the expanse was closer, and might still have standing domes intact enough to offer sanctuary. His eyes slid toward the distant outline of collapsed lattice structures, the ruins of Hafran City's outer. He tightened the straps on his rucksack, securing med packs, emergency rations, and a handful of salvage tools. Carefully, he pried open a sealed compartment in his ship's flank, retrieving a compact survival kit and a portable grav scooter's backup battery. The scooter itself was wedged under debris. He'd be able to free it later if he found enough power. For now, every second counted. He mounted his exosuit's built-in lantern and began the slow trudge toward the settlement, each footstep sending clinking echoes across the barren ground. About halfway there, the wind shifted, carrying a faint echo of movement. Elias halted, hand instinctively drifting to his sidearm, though his weapon had been knocked out of commission in the crash. All he had now were 2 plasma stunners and a pocket knife. He forced his breathing to slow, listening. The wind subsided, and he perceived it again. A faint rustle, a soft footfall far less mechanical than it should be. He pivoted on the spot, HUD scanning the dim environs. From behind, a cluster of crystalline shards stepped a silhouette. Small, fragile, yet strikingly unafraid. The girl's form was slight, no more than 4 feet tall, dressed in ragged tunic and pants that had once perhaps been a uniform. Her silvery hair, tangled with dust, caught the last of the dying sunlight. In her arms, she clutched a battered, stuffed toy, a small, now dinged replica of an X-17 Interceptor, emblazoned with faded Frontier Fleet markings. Elias's heart seized. That model had been standard kit on security ships years ago, its insignia nearly obsolete. How had she come into possession of it? He kept his hand raised, signaling caution. "Stay," he intoned, voice firm but not harsh. "Don't come closer." The girl froze but did not retreat. Instead, she tilted her chin up, allowing the lamplight to reveal the depth of her eyes, a deep sea green flecked with gold. Under the grime, her face was remarkably delicate, features that spoke of an ancestry long gone from this world. Elias felt an unexpected pang. She was so small, so undeniably a child. He adjusted his stance, easing the tension in his shoulders. "Do you need help?" he called, voice softer now. Her lips quivered and she took a tentative step forward. I'm hungry," she whispered, voice fragile as if unused in years. Elias examined her more closely. No visible weapon, no sign of hostile intent. Instead, she emanated raw vulnerability, a survivor who had endured something he could only guess at. He lowered his arm slowly. "All right," he said. "I'll help you, but you have to stay where I can see you." She nodded, then, stepping closer, allowed him to see that her clothes were patched in multiple places, careful, uneven stitching hinting at urgent repairs. Elias reached into his pack and pulled out a single ration bar, its foil casing still sealed. He offered it to her. She hesitated, staring at it with a mixture of wonder and disbelief, then reached out, taking it with trembling fingers. She unwrapped it slowly, as though afraid it might vanish. "Thank you," she whispered, voice small. Her hands trembled as she nibbled on the bar. Elias scanned her form again, noting the way her ribs brushed against the thin fabric. She was gaunt. "Where are your parents?" he asked gently. A shadow flickered across her face as she swallowed. They were taken," she said, voice tight. "During the storm. I ran away, but I couldn't find them." Elias's chest tightened. He knew the radiation storms here could strike without warning. Vicious winds, sub-zero temperatures, lethal fallout. Many had died trying to reach the evacuation docks. "You've been alone here?" he breathed. She nodded, wrapping her arms around her knees. "Since the transports fell. Everyone else. They didn't make it." She glanced up, eyes brimming with tears. "I didn't know where to go." He felt a jolt of anger at the injustice of it all. Parents lost. A child left, to fend for herself on a dead world. He couldn't let her stay here. Turning away for a moment, he looked back toward the shattered skyline of the old settlement. "There's a ruin up ahead. It's safer than out here. Come on." He offered his hand. At first, she hesitated, fear etched in every line of her frame. Then she took it, her fingers small and cold against his glove. He guided her across jagged rocky crags, mindful of every step. One misstep could send them tumbling onto sharp obsidian shards. The settlement's entrance loomed as a half-collapsed archway of corroded steel. Beyond it lay the remnants of a corridor that once connected to hydroponic domes. Now, vines of dust and fungus crawled across cracked bulkheads. Light filtered through shattered panels above, revealing motes of dust drifting like suspended snow in the dim corridor. Elias paused, checking the overhead radiation meter. Levels were within safe range, but the longer they stayed, the more risk they incurred. He lifted the girl up and onto a pile of broken insulation panels, which he then arranged into a makeshift seat. She sat on it, clutching her stuffed ship close, eyes wide in awe of the surroundings. "Stay here," he instructed, stepping back into the corridor. He flicked his suit's lantern upward, illuminating walls pockmarked with scorch and decay. Loose cables dangled like vines. He encountered the remains of tables, overturned chairs, and rusted utility crates. Digging through them, he located an intact medpack. Relief flickered in his chest. At least he could stop her from starving or suffering a serious injury. He returned to the makeshift shelter, laying the medpack beside her and pulling out thermal blankets. The girl gazed at him, uncertain. He knelt and wrapped one blanket around her shoulders. "This will help against the cold," he said. Lyra, he learned her name was Lyra when she managed a hesitant smile, unwrapped the blanket, pressing it to her cheek. Her gaze wandered to his suit's HUD, where the readouts indicated his vitals were steady, but he was overdue for rest. He knew he wouldn't get much sleep tonight. He'd need to stand watch, but first he had to secure more resources. He stood, patting her shoulder. "Stay here. I'll be back with food and water." She nodded, clutching her toy even tighter. Elias slipped back outside, trudging toward the wrecked vessel. A half-hour later, he returned with a duffel bag containing nutrient gel packs, sterilized, water rations, and 2 thermal foil jackets. He handed a gel pack to Lyra, demonstrating how to peel away the seal and drink the viscous paste. She mimicked him, grimacing at the initial taste but then swallowing gratefully. "Better than nothing," he muttered, handing her a second pack. His own hand shook slightly. He wasn't accustomed to dealing with children, let alone one so clearly traumatized. Yet at the same time, something in him tightened, a fierce protectiveness he hadn't expected to feel. She looked up at him with a timid expression, hungry, scared, but resilient. "Thank you," she repeated, voice firmer now. He managed a small smile. "You're safe for the moment." He glanced at the horizon. Deep purple sky, scattered stars, beginning to emerge. He'd stand at the dome's entrance, keeping watch until dawn. No matter what, he wouldn't leave her side until he was certain she was secure. Lyra nestled deeper into the blankets. "Will you stay?" she asked, eyes drifting closed. Elias nodded. "I'll stay, as long as you need." He settled at the dome's rim, back against the cold metal framework. His eyes flicked to Lyra through the dimness. She lay curled up, her breathing steady. He thought about the twin suns that had illuminated his world, one representing duty, the other hope. Both had betrayed him today, leaving him adrift on a hostile planet. Yet in Lyra's presence he sensed a fragile glimmer of something new, a reason to keep going beyond mere survival. He closed his eyes for a moment, forcing his mind back to the practical. His suit's reserve power would fail in perhaps 6 hours if he left his lantern at full brightness. He dimmed it to conserve energy. Then he calibrated the distress beacon's frequency one more time, set to pulse stronger once every few minutes. In this alien land, help might come from any direction: a scavenger ship, frontier patrol, or a passing freighter. When they arrived, he would be prepared to signal them. Outside, the wind picked up. A distant rumble echoed through the crystalline spires, an incoming radiation front, he realized. They needed to find a more secure shelter, perhaps deeper inside, the settlement's ruins, away from exposed structures. But that task could wait until the dawn's first light. For now, at least, Lyra slept. For now, there was a fragile peace. As the violet sky deepened into full night ebony, Elias's mind wandered to thoughts he would later consider reckless. What if he didn't just survive, but rescued her? What if, in doing so, he found a purpose, beyond the squadron briefings, the strategic maneuvers, and the unending missions? He had been taught to value logic, efficiency, and discipline. Children were distractions, luxuries he never allowed himself. But Lyra was different. She was an echo of countless innocents lost in the colonial wars, a living testament to the cost of conflict. His jaw tightened as he stared into the darkness, the storm rumbling closer. He clutched his sidearm holster, empty. Resolute, he whispered to the night, "I won't let anything happen to you." He didn't fully understand why he made that promise, only that he needed to keep it. And so, as the radiation winds began to howl beyond the broken dome, Captain Elias Thorne remained vigilant, a solitary guardian against a ruined world, bound now to a child whose life had been erased by war, and whose fragile hope he refused to abandon. The first light of dawn bled into the sky as Elias Thorne fired up the grav scooter's auxiliary thrusters. The wrecked dome lay behind them, a huddled silhouette against a pale violet horizon. Lyra, still wrapped in the thermal blanket he had lent her, clambered onto the back seat, clutching her battered spaceship toy with white-knuckled determination. Elias checked the scooter's power levels. The jury-rigged battery pack held just enough charge for the 2-day journey to New Ceres Station, nestled on the edge of Hafran's orbit. He adjusted his visor so that the HUD's navigation waypoint glowed faintly, guiding them through the cratered plains. Lyra's eyes, though weary, shone with anticipation. "Papa," she murmured, leaning forward to touch Elias's shoulder. "Do you think the station has gardens again?" The stories, They say there are real trees. Elias managed a small smile. They do. Green trees. And real grass. One day, we'll find you a place to plant your own. His voice was gentle, yet firm enough to mask his own uncertainties. How would he protect this child in a world where even the specks of dust could kill you? But for Lyra's sake, he would learn. They set off across a landscape of fractured rock and drifting ash. The grav scooter hummed like a contented beast, gliding just above the jagged surface. Frozen frost crystals clung to its hull. Elias navigated, through a gauntlet of collapsed overpasses and shards of once mighty sculptures. These ruins were the last vestiges of Hafran's grand colonial past. As they passed, he recounted quietly to Lyra, who had dozed off briefly, the tale of how these structures had adorned a flourishing arcology. He described vibrant plazas, biofiltered air, and gleaming spires. Lyra listened wide-eyed, as if the images he painted were from an impossible dream. Midway through the first day, the temperature dipped sharply. Elias steered toward an outcropping of obsidian rock that jutted like the spine of some ancient leviathan. Beneath its shadow lay a crevasse deep enough to provide shelter. He cut the scooter's power and let it coast to a stop. The wind whipped across the plain, carrying dust so fine it felt like needles against exposed skin. "We'll rest here for a few hours," Elias told Lyra, pulling her close against a rock ledge. From his pack, he produced a compact stove and activated it. The hiss of igniting fuel was startlingly loud in the stillness. He boiled rationed water and shared a steaming mug of rehydrated soup with her. Lyra sipped carefully, eyes unblinking, as though she had never known warmth or comfort. "Papa," she asked after a moment, "why did you stay?" Elias looked at her, his gaze softening. He realized this question carried more weight than she understood. He had lived decades as a soldier, valuing mission objectives over personal attachments. He had refused to form bonds that could distract him in battle. Yet something in Lyra's fragile trust had become his new mission. He exhaled slowly. "When I saw you, alone and scared, I remembered my sister. She was lost to me long ago. I couldn't stand by and let another child be alone." Lyra stared down into her bowl, absorbing his words. "I didn't have a sister," she said after a pause, "but I had a brother once. His name was Cassian. He died in one of the evacuations." Elias's throat tightened. "I'm sorry, Lyra. I promise I'll keep you safe from now on." Her small hand reached up and squeezed his. "I already feel safe with you." He nodded once, unable to speak. Outside, the wind moaned like a wounded animal. The howling set nerves on edge, but they remained nestled in the crevasse until the solar glare rekindled at noon. When Elias judged it safe, he dismantled the stove, packed away their meager remains, and guided Lyra back onto the grav scooter. By mid-afternoon, they had covered nearly half the distance to the orbital station's cattle processing port. Elias's brow glistened with sweat. He had pushed the short-range thrusters to their limits. Still, the faint glint of the station's orbital beacon on the horizon buoyed his spirit. The final stretch took them over a plateau where the horizon was dotted with ancient sensor towers half buried in ash. Navigating carefully between their skeletal frames, Elias noticed Lyra growing paler with fatigue. Every few minutes she would slump forward, her arms ringed around his waist. He slowed the scooter, concern tightening his chest. There were no civvy shuttles on Hafran's surface anymore. Only scavenger gangs and drifting freebooters. He scanned the skies. No clouds meant they would not be bombarded by a radiation front today. Still, the altitude was high, and the thin air made breathing laborious. They reached the station gates just before dusk. New Ceres Station hovered low in the atmosphere, its docking bays carved into a crescent of reinforced alloy, illuminated by strings of slack xenon lights. Elias steered the grav scooter through automated checkpoints, identification scans, contamination monitors, and a cursory weapons pat-down. The neon-red badges on his exosuit declared him Captain Interstellar, Frontier Fleet. It was enough to push them past the outer airlock. He felt Lyra's hand on his back, trembling. "Stay close," he reminded her. She nodded numbly, eyes wide with wonder as she saw fully intact biodomes through the docking bay's window. Lush plantations, glowing hydroponic tubes, and shipping containers repurposed for gardens. Even at the fringe of Halfran's torn atmosphere, they had built marvels of life amid decay. A medroid, sleek and half-milled from obsidian alloy, glided up to them. Its hemisphere of sensors blinked. "Captain Thorne," it intoned in a calm, mechanical voice. "Child registered as Lyra Hallow, presumed orphaned. Please accompany me to the medical ward for triage and observation." Lyra drew a shaky breath and grasped Elias's leg. "Papa?" He knelt beside her and brushed a lock of silver hair from her face. "Hang on, Lyra. I'm right here." He rose and followed the droid through a corridor stamped with pale cerulean tiles, through sliding doors that hummed open to reveal rows of medical capsules and soft white lights. Inside, a pair of physicians, one human, one android, greeted them. The human doctor's uniform bore the insignia of the Interstellar Resettlement Authority. She offered Lyra a small smile. "We'll make her comfortable. Captain, you can stay with her until we finish the initial scans." Elias nodded. He settled into a chair as Lyra was guided into a transparent medical pod. A warm mist spritzed her, and a gentle hum surrounded them. Data flickered across the doctor's tablet, vitals stabilizing, mild dehydration, exposure trauma. Lyra's eyes widened when a panel slid open and a tray presented a clean set of coveralls in a bright orange, far better than her threadbare apparel. "Here," the doctor said. "These should help you acclimatize." Lyra took them, shivering, slightly as she changed behind a privacy screen. Elias watched her emerging, taller, clothed in fleet-issued garden overalls. He hardly recognized her. She looked like a child again instead of a survivor. Once the scan concluded, the doctor escorted them out. "Captain Thorne, Commander Darvel is awaiting your debrief in the security office. Afterward, we'll assign Lyra to a safe house until Guardian protocols are settled." Elias felt a tightness in his chest. "I'm her guardian," he said, voice firm. "I won't leave her." The doctor studied him with quiet respect. "Understood. We'll expedite the process, but Halfran's evacuation records were lost. Proof of lineage will take time." She tapped a data pad. "In the meantime, a nurse will help her settle. You may accompany her if you wish." Lyra gently tugged at Elias's side. He slipped an arm around her shoulders and guided her through the station's corridors. They rounded a corner into a more domestic wing where soft carpets replaced metallic grates. A nurse, slender and bronze-skinned, led Lyra to a small residential pod, a single room with a bed, small desk, and hollow plant growing in a moist terrarium. "Here you are, sweetie," the nurse said kindly, bending to Lyra's level. She handed a plush blanket to Lyra, who accepted it with shy gratitude. "Get some rest. A full meal will be brought to you shortly." Lyra nodded but did not move to sit. Her eyes flicked to Elias. He knelt beside her, wrapping an arm around her. "Stay here," he told her quietly. "I need to see the commander." She swallowed. "Be careful, Papa." He pressed a kiss to her forehead. "Always." He walked to the security office, steps echoing on polished floors. Inside, Commander Darvel awaited, her posture rigid, stature tall. Her dark uniform was decorated with medals from the Outer Colonies campaign. Though no more than 40, her expression was steely, almost skeptical. "Captain Thorne?" She began without preamble. "Lyra Hallow is the sole surviving heir to the Hallow estate. The Senate will want her relocated and guarded under strict custody. Your role is unofficial. The child will need a ward of state until the Senate decides on her future." Elias bristled but didn't let his temper show. "Commander, she's alone. She asked me to stay. I intend to honor that." Darvel narrowed her eyes. "You must understand we have legal obligations. Without definitive proof, we cannot simply hand her over. But neither can we risk you disappearing with the last Hallow heir." He met her gaze. "I'll submit to any background checks, but I'm here now, ready to be her guardian." I will not abandon her to indefinite state custody if it means she's moved from station to station, separated from any sense of home. For a moment, the commander regarded him in silence. Then she exhaled, a subtle release. "Fine," she said quietly. "You have until the Senate's Humanitarian Council convenes. You will lodge with her in the station's family quarters. You must keep her safe, feed her, and arrange schooling. The Fleet Privileges Department will grant you limited access to Lyra's resources, bank accounts, stasis credits. Do not squander them." Elias nodded crisply. "Understood." He turned to leave but paused. "One thing, Commander. Will you consider opening an official guard position on Hafren proper? I would like to ensure no one else roams those ruins and harms anyone else again." Darvel weighed him, then inclined her head slightly. "I will submit your request. If approved, you'll be stationed on the surface under Frontier Fleet Remnant Command." He refused to let a smile break as he left. As he returned to Lyra's quarters, a hush enveloped him. Through the door's transparent panel, he saw Lyra curled beneath her blanket, clutching her toy spaceship. He pushed the door open gently. Lyra looked up, eyes rimmed with vulnerability. He sat on the edge of her bed. "They've approved me, as your guardian, at least until a formal council meets. You're staying here in a real room with a soft bed and warm food. No more ruins, Lyra." Her breath was shaky. I'm happy, Papa." He reached out, tucking a stray lock of hair behind her ear. "We'll figure everything out, together. No matter what happens, I'm here for you." She leaned against him, head resting on his shoulder. Outside, the station's lights cast gentle shadows across her face. In that moment, Elias felt something new take root. Not duty, but purpose. Not just a mission, but a family forged in the cold void of space. Later, as Hafren's broken horizon faded behind the shuttle bay's window, Lyra fell asleep in her bed. Elias lingered by her side, watching her chest rise and fall. The burden of uncertainty pressed on him. The Senate's decisions, Lyra's legal status, his own fractured past. Yet none of that mattered as long as she slept peacefully. He straightened the blankets, then sat down in the bedside chair. He gazed out at the stars, their pinprick brilliance undimmed by the station's hull. Somewhere among them drifted worlds yet untouched by war. Somewhere, perhaps, Lyra would grow up far from violence, planting real trees of her own. He flexed his fingers around the cold armrest, a promise forming in his mind. To give her the chance to dream beyond the broken world that had given her nothing but pain. As Nova 23 OR chimed softly over the station's comms, Elias whispered, to the silent room, "Sleep well, Lyra. We're going to be okay, because we have each other." And in the deep, velvety expanse of New Ceres Station, a father and daughter slept side by side under the watchful glow of distant stars, bound together by hope and the unwavering resolve to face whatever tomorrow might bring.